Good morning, I'm Stella, Lead Regional Strategic. Joining me today are Fernanda, our Social Equity Analyst, Navid, our Government Specialist, Karina, our Climate Risk Advisors, and Enier, Fiscal Economist. We are here to brief you on what we believe will be Chile's defining a strategic challenge over the next 5 years. Water scarcity induces agricultural collapse. Let me set the It is my mid-2027. Chile is entering the third consecutive year of what meteorologists are now calling a permanent mega drought. Central agricultural regions, the country's bread baskets, are experiencing extreme water stress. The dry-up Laguna Aculeo, which Greenpeace used as a symbol of crisis back in 2019, is no longer an anomaly. It is the new normal.
And this isn't just an environmental story, Daniela. What we're seeing is a cascading social crisis rooted in the concept of human dignity. Small-scale farmers in rural regions, many of whom work informally, are losing their livelihoods. According to our analysis, nearly 30% of Chile's workforce operates in the informal sector, with women disproportionately affected.
When the drought destroyed agricultural income, these workers have no unemployment insurance, no safety net. So what happens? Forced unplanned migration to urban centers, such as Santiago and Valparaiso, cities that are already strained. Families are making impossible choices. Do we stay and face destitution, or do we migrate and lose our community or identity or dignity?
And here's where the economic pillar intersects with the social one. Our data from the Americas Strategic Atlas shows that Chilean households bear a crushing burden of out-of-pocket healthcare costs. 32.63% in 2021 post-COVID. That's nearly a third of all the healthcare expenses paid directly by families.
So, when water scarcity leads to waterborne disease, temporary crisis, or stress-related illness, and it will, poor and rural face financial ruin. They're forced to choose between water, food, and healthcare. It's a direct assault to dignity.
Now let's talk about the political response. Chile's current administration sits center-left on the political spectrum. This is significant because there are ideological lines towards state intervention and resource, and critically, they're not in an immediate election cycle, which gives them the political bandwidth to pursue long-term, high-impact policies.
But will those policies actually work? That's the critical question. Chile's Corruption Perceptions Index score from Transparency International is 67, relatively strong for the region, so corruption isn't the primary barrier here.
Exactly, the problem is structural. Scientific research by Boisier and colleagues published in Hydrology and Earth System Science in 2025 confirmed that Chile's mega drought from 2010 to 2022 wasn't just about reduced precipitation. Rather, it was compounded by overexplosion from agriculture and mining, and critically by a water governance framework that cannot effectively regulate demand under climate stress.
So even if the government proposes ambitious reforms such as the 2024 National Water Adaptation Plan led by the General Directorate of Water Execution, remains the challenge. The institutional architecture is fragmented, water rights are contested, and the 2022 Water Code reform is stalled.
And that brings us to the economic strikes. Chile is Chile's economic engine. According to the analysis by PricewaterhouseCoopers released in 2024, by 2050, more than half of the world's copper deposits will be in drought risk zones. For Chile specifically, 74% of lithium products and 54% of copper products will be exposed to significant, high, or even extreme.
El Financiero, a right-leaning business publication, reports that the mining industry is already preparing for a future dependent on desalinated water. It's not just a hypothetical scenario. It's happening now. So we have a social crisis, loss of livelihoods, dignity, and the health of equity, starting with an economic crisis in the nation's most important export sector.
And a political system that, while well intended, may lack the institutional capacity to respond quickly enough. That's the strategic challenge facing Chile through 2030.
Let me zoom out and ground this narrative in the hard data that supports our forecast. First, let's talk about fiscal capacity. Chile entered the post-pandemic period with a public debt at 42.1% of GDP in 2021. Citing the OECD Economic Surveys for Chile, this is considerably below the OECD average of over 90%. This gives Chile substantial borrowing room.
And we also analyze Chile's cycle capacity using COVID data. During 2021, government nearly 16% of GDP, which demonstrates a physical response. But the most predicted indicator is the GDP rebound. Chile's economy contracts by 6% in 2020, then surged by 11.7% in 2021. That's one of the strongest rebounds in Latin America.
So the government can mobilize capital and has demonstrated resilience. But what about the social vulnerabilities?
The out-of-pocket health expenditure figure I mentioned, 32.63%, conservative on the Atlas dataset from 2021. When we overlay with the informal employment rates of nearly 30%, especially among women, we see a population that is extremely vulnerable to climate shocks.
And on the governance side, Transparency International CPI score of 67 indicates a strong institutional transparency. However, as the research from the Instituto Complutense de Ciencias de la Administración highlights, Chile's water governance is fragmented and creates unequal access. So the issue isn't corruption, rather it is coordination and modernization.
All of this data converges on a single conclusion. Chile has the financial strength and institutional integrity to respond, but without structural reform, even well-funded policies will underperform.
So, what are Think's prediction for 2025 to 2030? Chile will pursue state-centered, socially focused water policies. The government will increase public investment, likely through selective external borrowing.
Based on the GDP rebound precedent, we forecast that Chile could achieve partial economic recovery with 2 to 3 years after a major climate shock if fiscal policy remains expansionary and strategically allocated. However, here is the risk. If structural reforms in water governance are delayed, especially full implementation of 2022 Water Code reform, prolonged growth will place increasing pressure on the budget.
And on the social side, without targeting information, we will have an accelerated growth to urban migration, increasing former labor vulnerability and a deepening health equity crisis. The principle of dignity will be violated at scale.
Which brings us to our actionable recommendation to the Development Bank.
Chile possesses crucial attributes from physical capacity and renewable energy. The countries of regional need and solar and wind. Our recommendation is to strengthen to politicize the water supply by launching a Savage Blue-Green.
The purpose of this initiative is to fund large-scale climate-independent infrastructure, specifically desalination and tertiary water treatment plants powered by dedicated new renewable energy capacity. This approach creates a reliable new water source that doesn't depend on uncontested inland rivers and aquifers.
And this aligns perfectly with our social equity framework. By freeing up inland water from ecological flow and small-scale agriculture, you protect the livelihoods and the dignity of rural communities. At the same time, you practice infrastructure investment with a targeted social adaptation fund, financed by a resource tax on large-scale water users.
The fund would provide two critical services. First, transitional reskilling subsidies to train displaced agricultural workers for climate-resilient sectors, such as renewable energy maintenance and water-efficient technology installation. Second, health coverage stipends to drastically reduce out-of-pocket health burdens in drought-declared regions.
The beauty of the blue-green bond model is that it attracts international climate finance. Chile's strong fiscal position and low corruption risk make it an ideal candidate for multilateral lending. The Development Bank can structure this as a co-investment, thereby reducing risk while maximizing social and environmental return.
Given Chile's demonstrated capacity for rapid physical development, we estimate initial this limit capacity could be operational by late 2027, with full-scale impact by 2029. The social adaptation could be established permanently to agriculture.
This isn't just climate adaptation, this is a dignity-centered development model that positions Chile as a regional leader in sustainable resource management.
To summarize, the water security crisis that threatens agricultural stability, mining productivity, and social equity. The country has the fiscal strength and institutional integrity to respond, but success depends on structural reform and innovative financing. Our recommendation is a sovereign blue-green bond initiative paired with a social adaptation fund, leverages Chile renewable and energy leadership to create climate independent water security while protecting human dignity. Thank you for your time. This has been a briefly from the Regional Risk Assessment Division. I'm Daniela.
I'm Fernanda.
I'm Navid.
I'm Dariana.
And I'm Amy.
Thank you for listening to America's Development